Prime Minister Narendra Modi has entered the holy abode of the Muktinath Temple and he is offering his prayers. He also met the priests inside this abode. As we can see, he is offering his prayers. All right, let's also go back to Siddhant. Siddhant, we were talking about how China is a challenge for India in terms of its ties with Nepal. Please continue.
Well, we know about this issue, Chinese growing presence. But let me tell you a small nugget of fact that right now on your screen, what you can see is Prime Minister in the Sanctum Sanctorum of the temple. And it's for the first time in Indian television that visuals from Muktinath are being beamed live right across India and, of course, Nepal. This is, of course, a historic moment. And this, of course, gel wells with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's entire visit also, because these are the visuals. A lot of people, his domestic constituency will be really happy to see that these visuals being for the first time, because people obviously had to trek a lot to go to this place. Muktinath is in northern Nepal, and right now today what you can see is like of course puja being done by the Prime Minister of India, but of course a visual of the deities there in that historic temple, a temple of immense significance for both Hindus and Buddhists. But coming back to your question on China, of course China remains a worry for India, and growing Chinese closeness between Kathmandu and Beijing is something that obviously will worry India, and there has been anxieties also. China has announced its own connectivity plans, and no longer Himalayas are the barriers between Nepal and China. And China is also considering Nepal as its buffer state so that security remains in its own restive Tibet. That's a contentious issue, and China, of course, would never like Tibet to be alienated in a sense. Territorial integrity matters a lot for China. One China policy is a policy even Donald Trump had to finally accept. Initially during his campaign he was saying something else, but later on he said okay, one China. But focus is right now on this visit, and this visit coming just a few weeks after the Prime Minister of India met the President of China in Wuhan, that historic important summit, and that plays into the entire foreign policy of the Indian Prime Minister, out-of-box thinking of the Indian Prime Minister.
Absolutely agree with you. This is the out-of-box thinking of the Indian Prime Minister, and that also states that, you know, the fact that Indian Prime Minister met Chinese President Xi Jinping just a few weeks ago in Wuhan, and now he is in Nepal, which is, of course, now extremely close to China. That also goes on to establish the changing global equation, not just for India, but across the globe.
Been the of course attempts by the Indian Prime Minister, and that attempts are also working, because that is what the Indian Prime Minister wants, a new image of India, a new India. And this, of course, what you can see is out of the box thinking by the Indian Prime Minister, because never before this has been attempted. We know hug diplomacy, we know a lot of other types of diplomacy, but this is faith diplomacy on your screens. That of course helps a lot when it comes to India and Nepal relationship, a relationship based on roti beti ka rishta, or food or family relationship, and this is the focus of the entire visit. These are great optics, very good optics, but the question is, will it translate in changing the image of India on the ground that has suffered in past few years? But there are always naysayers, and let's hope for the best between the India-Nepal ties, and hopefully after the visit there can be re-engagement and re-emphasis on this special relationship.
Siddhant, speaking of naysayers, I would actually like to ask you how is the Nepalese media reacting to PM Modi's visit, and what is the general feel online when it comes to Indian Prime Minister's visit to Nepal?
Well, Nepalese media initially had a mixed review, and of course right now the visit is underway, so they are just reporting on what has happened. The deliverables mixed because after the blockade there was a mixed image of India, not positive very much, and of course not negative also, because India has been a close ally for a long time. Nepalese media has been talking about incompleted projects. They have been talking about past promises but never fulfilled, but they are also talking about how India has been a close ally they can back on any time. A country where a lot of people from Nepal work. Though of course Twitter trend had a different version. Twitter was not very positive about the visit, but the news was of course talking about what can be the main focus, the deliverables, how India can help in various other projects, India's various earthquake reliefs which have been helping Nepal, but clearly the focus now has shifted to something else, that's called the faith diplomacy. Yesterday even we saw hug diplomacy with both the prime ministers before the press statements, having that warm hug, and after that the press statements came, but today is faith diplomacy.
Right. Thank you so much, Siddhant, for bringing us all those details live from Nepal. These are live visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting the Muktinath Temple, and as you can see, he is inside the sanctorium of the temple where he's being attended by the priests as he offers his prayers and performs the puja. And as we all know, this temple has tremendous importance and significance for the Hindus and Buddhists in Nepal. Prime Minister's visit has been marked by religious and faith diplomacy, which is expected to facilitate greater and better ties between India and Nepal. This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's. It is a two-day stringent and extremely packed visit for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who will be heading back to India in the evening today. But before he does that, he will also visit the Pashupatinath Temple today. And it was yesterday in Janakpur that Prime Minister Modi flagged off a bus service from Janakpur to Ayodhya. Janakpur, as we all know, also happens to be Goddess Sita's birthplace, while Ayodhya is Lord Rama's birthplace. So clearly a very, very symbolic and emblematic move. It was in Janakpur yesterday that Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a public gathering where he reassured Nepal that India will always be by the side of their neighbor, spoke about their neighborhood first policy. He also said that India will continue to stand with Nepal. India and Nepal must forge better connectivity, and that Nepal figures prominently in India's neighborhood first policy. He also stated that India wants to provide Nepal with greater connectivity to Indian ports, and that India and Nepal will boost cooperation in the field of science and technology. He mentioned that India has managed to fulfill its promise of launching a satellite to help Nepal. And today he is at the Muktinath Temple. As you can see, he's offering his prayers to the deities inside the sanctorium of Muktinath Temple in Nepal. As much as faith diplomacy has helped in facilitating ties, and the two countries are hoping to take this beyond the optics and materialize it into all the promises that India and Nepal have made to each other. There are various joint projects in the pipeline for the two countries, which also includes oil transport, A satellite also has been launched by India to help Nepal. As we all know, PM Modi and his Nepalese counterpart, Mr. KP Sharma Oli, jointly inaugurated the Ramayana Circuit bus route that connects Janakpur from capital Kathmandu to Ayodhya. And the Indian government has managed to identify 15 destinations in India, including Ayodhya, Nandigram, Hampi and Nagpur, for development under the Ramayana Circuit theme. Prime Minister Modi and KP Sharma Oli also held one-to-one talks in Kathmandu yesterday, where bilateral ties were not only strengthened, but a lot of decisions were also arrived upon between the two leaders of India and Nepal. It will be later during the day that Prime Minister Modi will offer his prayers at the famous Muktinath Temple as well. It will be his second visit to the temple. The foundation stone for a hydroelectricity project in the eastern Nepal district of Sankhubasabha was also laid by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The project is Arun Sri project. And I am also joined in by our international correspondent Siddhant Sibal, who is reporting live from Nepal. Let's quickly go across to Siddhant. Siddhant, these are some great visuals being streamed from Muktinath Temple, and as you pointed out earlier, that this is the first time live visuals are being streamed from the temple. We can see that Prime Minister Modi is inside the sanctorium offering his prayers, as he's attended also by the priests over there. Earlier we saw that he was greeted by several Nepalese people who thronged the temple. Tell us more about the temple and this visit.
Well, this is a historic visit. I've already emphasized on that. But right now, what you can see on your screen, it's something out of the box. This is thinking foreign policy out of the box for India and, of course, the India Prime Minister. And this foreign policy focuses on commonalities. Remember, with every country with which India today is engaging, it's engaging on the basis of commonality. Whether it's Israel, whether it's Germany, or whether it's UK. For example, with Israel, India wants to be a startup nation. So India started a policy so that India can have a lot of startups using Israeli help, because Israel is also known as startup nation. If we talk about Germany, Angela Merkel came here. He took her to Bangalore and showed her around. And of course, with France also, he took the French president to Chandigarh. So that is something out of the box for the Indian foreign minister. But right now, on your screen is something of a really different nature, because this is all about faith diplomacy, diplomacy focusing on faith, on commonalities. Yesterday, we even saw a hug diplomacy, but focus by and large on how India and Nepal can be connected through various means, especially through physical means. The newspapers today are talking about a railway connect, a connect to airlines, a connect to waterways. Waterway is an innovative way, because India and Nepal have almost 600 water bodies that they share. Some large, some small. Focus, of course, today is on large water bodies.
Right.
But focus has to be shifted on the small water bodies as well. But these water bodies can help connect Nepal with India. As the Indian Prime Minister yesterday said, that Nepal is no longer a landlocked country, it's a land-linked, and it's a water-linked country. That is the focus. But these optics, what you are seeing on your screen right now, is something that also raises the question that will India able to deliver here in Nepal, because the common man here in Nepal is really not happy with what happened with the blockade and after the blockade coming after the earthquake. So India has to change that perception, that image on the ground here in Nepal, while China has been able to do it very smartly, very cleverly.
Right, Siddhant. We can see some great visuals coming in there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just offered his prayers at the Muktinath Temple. He's inside the sanctorium offering his prayers and received blessings from the priests over there. And as we all know, Muktinath is a very sacred place for both Hindus and Buddhists. And it's located in the Muktinath Valley at an altitude of approximately 3,710 meters at the foot of Tarongla mountain pass, which is a part of the Himalayas in Nepal. The site is also close to the village of Rani Puva, which is sometimes mistakenly, it's also called Muktinath. Indeed, a very, very religious place, and of course has tremendous importance for Hindus and the Buddhists. It's interesting to note, Siddhant, how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made it a point to visit all the places in Nepal of religious significance.
Well, it's smart diplomacy, I would rather say, and what you are seeing on your screens are the Prime Minister, of course, doing puja at the temple, and for the first time, as I've already mentioned, that these visuals coming from the Sanctorum, and this is primarily because the Indian Prime Minister went there. So that matters a lot, especially when it comes to his own constituency, especially for the BJP party. This is something that the party can cash on. And just before the big elections, Lok Sabha election, this is a creation of a new image of a party that is considered closer and whose base is Hindus. But focusing on the larger visit has strong emphasis on faith diplomacy, a new kind of diplomacy, a smart diplomacy, a new initiative that connects the people of two countries, India and Nepal, through faith. And yesterday even the Prime Minister many times actually referred to this common connect of faith between India and Nepal. Yesterday, Janakpur became part of the Ramayana circuit. The Prime Minister also talked about a Buddhist circuit, a Jain circuit. We can expect a Buddhist circuit also encompassing Sri Lanka, because Nepal, India and Sri Lanka have common heritage and of course a lot of sites of Buddhist significance. So maybe next visit we can expect some kind of a Buddhist circuit being announced. But today it was, today and yesterday it was about faith diplomacy and the Ramayana circuit being announced. And great optics, great visuals by the Prime Minister going to these temples, these three temples, first in the Janki Devi temple in Janakpur, then of course he is right now in Muktinath, and then finally in Pashupatinath, where right now I am going, because that will be the next big event and we will be giving you live from that location. We have already been to Pashupatinath. It's a majestic temple on the banks of river Bagmati that cuts across Kathmandu. It's a temple of historic significance. Legend has it that it was built in the year 3 BC. That makes it quite ancient, and a lot of people visit it almost on a daily basis. A lot of pilgrims from India visit on a daily basis, and the chief priest is from Bangalore, which of course sends another message, and a symbol on a day when the state is going for voting. But other than that, the focus is on infrastructure and connectivity, but faith diplomacy largely has been dominating the entire agenda. The newspapers today had only one picture. Every newspaper you open in Nepal, the picture of the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Nepal wearing that pink safa, which pictures beamed across not only Nepal but India, and of course will be remembered by the people of both the countries for a pretty long time. But as I told you, India has to change the image also, because India is facing a trust deficit, at least in the common man here, who is really not happy with what happened with the blockade and thereafter. So that is something India has to change, and especially on what it says and what it delivers, because India has been asked, saying that we will do this, we'll do that, we'll construct this, but is not able to deliver, while Chinese have been able to do it, and that too before the deadline. So that puts a positive image of China here in Kathmandu and across Nepal. But largely there is anxiety when it comes to growing Kathmandu Beijing ties, because that gives anxiety to New Delhi, of course, because South Asia was once considered a backyard of India, but that is changing slowly but surely.
Right. And we can see that Prime Minister Modi has just exited the sanctorium, and as he thanked the monks and the priests who attended to him inside the sanctorium at the Muktinath Temple, and he seems to be making an exit from the Muktinath Temple. It's indeed been a very, very pensive and spiritual moment for the Prime Minister of India, as we can see him making an exit from the Muktinath Temple. He's just met the priests over there. Siddhant, there are also reports that Prime Minister Modi is expected to announce a surprise gift for the development of the Muktinath Temple. Is that true?
Well, as of now, no such plans have been announced officially. Yesterday in Janakpur, we saw that Prime Minister announcing development assistance for development of the area around Janakpur, so that it becomes more advanced when it comes to infrastructure development. We can expect that, but we can only know when he comes back to Kathmandu, where I am right now, because Muktinath is largely a pilgrimage, a symbolic visit, a visit that makes good optics, but the question is that will these optics translate into good India-Nepal relationships? Now,
right.
You can see on your screens the Prime Minister praying, and of course going to the places of
right.
important and immense significance in the temple
right.
itself, and having that Charanamrit, and now of course he will be leaving shortly from that place and coming back to Kathmandu, where right now I am at the Pashupatinath Temple, where the next major event of the Indian Prime Minister is all set to take place.
Right. You are in Kathmandu, Siddhant, and we would like to know how was the meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, because we do know that it was very integral in terms of bilateral ties between the two countries, and a lot of important decisions were arrived upon.
Well, yes, Kathmandu was all about diplomacy yesterday, when both the Prime Minister had a long meeting. He even met former Prime Ministers of Nepal, and then there was this press statement by the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Nepal. But right now we are in Pashupatinath Temple. We have just reached Pashupatinath Temple, where we are setting up the entire system, because this is where the next big event is going to take place. The Indian Prime Minister is going to visit this temple. And let me tell you a very important thing, that Muktinath is at a place which is geographically very difficult. It's snow covered as we speak, while rest of northern India at least is going through a kind of a heat wave and so that is the difference. And it's not easy to go to Muktinath. Yes, pilgrims go there. Yes, a lot of people who have faith go there. But Pashupatinath is an easy access area. It's in the center of Kathmandu Valley.
Right.
It makes a skyline for the Kathmandu Valley, and that is why a lot of Indian pilgrims come here. And we can expect a lot of Indian pilgrims today meeting the Indian Prime Minister when he arrives shortly at around 10:30 a.m. Local time here in Nepal.
Right. Siddhant, you have reached Pashupatinath Temple, and we know that Prime Minister Narendra Modi it will not be the first time that he is visiting Pashupatinath Temple. And let's speak about the historical and religious significance of that temple.
Well, this is a temple that has huge historical as well as religious significance. It's one of the Char Dhams. It's one of the main Shiva temple, not only in Nepal, in the entire subcontinent. Lakhs and lakhs of a lot of pilgrims come here on a daily basis. Right now, as I speak, I am surrounded by so many pilgrims going to the temple. Since the temple is open only till 1 o'clock, then of course there is the bhog ceremony, and after that it reopens again at 2 o'clock, and then of course it closes at around 4 o'clock. And the significance of this temple can be known from the fact that most of the people who come to Kathmandu go to this temple at least once and take all the prasad, because that is something that the entire city is known because of this temple, this historic temple. And ironically, Nepal was hit by that devastating earthquake. Nepal was hit by that devastating earthquake. This temple was not even touched. It survived. Not a stone from this building, this massive building, this historic building came down. This shows, and of course after this we got more religious about the entire temple. And obviously faith is something that is very important in the entire subcontinent. We know faith has made sure that people come together, and also know that faith has made sure people go away from each other. But today it's the time to focus on how faith can bring people together, how faith can bring people of Nepal and people of India together for the best of both the countries, because India and Nepal share a roti beti ka rishta of food and family relationship. But let me add another F now, the faith, food and family relationship bind India and Nepal with each other, and they are expected to bind forever. India and Nepal, as the Indian Prime Minister said, that share relationship that is centuries old. They date back to Vedas, and today that is what the Indian Prime Minister is going to emphasize when he arrives here in Pashupatinath, and then of course the civic reception in Kathmandu.